Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Frank Stanton, and I'm here by way of the fact that I'm chairman of the visiting committee of the Kennedy School. And indeed, I think if I had been certain that the dean would have returned from his trip to Israel in time to chair this meeting, I would have asked him to do it instead of doing it myself. Certainly, Sony and the man who heads it needs no introduction, because everywhere in the world today, Sony is synonymous with quality and engineering innovation and style. And I think our speaker this evening has all of those same qualities. He's a strong man on the quality. He's certainly excellent in the field of design, and he's one of the world's foremost marketing leaders. I've known him for, I guess, the better part of 25 years. In fact, at one point in my career, before I retired, we had a joint venture. My old company still has a joint venture in audio products or in records in the Pacific Basin. And I would only tell you a little story about that because I think it is typical of the strength and the leadership of this man. When my colleagues were out in Tokyo or in Japan negotiating this joint ventureship, I was on the other end of the phone in New York. And one of my colleagues, Goddard Lieberson, called me one night and he said, because I had warned him of the fact that I thought we had to provide for a certain loss for the first couple of years maybe, because I couldn't believe that we could start a new company as good as Sony was, and I thought we were pretty good. But I didn't think we could do it without having some losses in the early part of the program. And Goddard said to me on the long-distance phone, he said, well, you know, Mr. Morita says that we're going to be in the black in the first year. Well, for me, that was an enormous promise, but I just didn't think it could happen. Well, it not only happened, but the company has been fantastically profitable ever since, and he has more than kept all of the long-range plans that he talked about when the venture began. Now, if I'd only been smart and listened to him in another situation, I could have saved my company and the stockholders of CBS in $1960, maybe $30 million. Because I had dinner with him one evening and I told him about, and he already knew about it, but we talked at some length about a development we had called video film recording. And this was one of the early efforts that my company made to get into the pre-recorded programming business for video. He was very deep into recording and had almost all the audio market and recording, as you all know, and was deep into the whole field of plans for video recording. And he had a very dim view and took a very dim view of VFR. And of course, I thought it was better than sliced bread. And sliced bread turned out not to be very good. But he said he wouldn't do it the way we were going to do it. And I should have listened, and I didn't listen. And so we finally bit the bullet a few years later and discontinued the project. I only tell these two stories because I think they show the kind of entrepreneurship, the kind of planning, the kind of vision, and more importantly than anything else, I think the marketing knowledge that this man has of the entire world. I would guess that he's given today credit for being the most visible of all Japanese businessmen anywhere. And it's a real privilege and a delight for me to be able to introduce him here this evening. And he's going to talk informally. He has indicated that he will be delighted to answer some questions at the close. I don't want to take any more time with any more anecdotes, although there are some that he knows and I know that I could tell. Mr. Morita.
Thank you very much, Dr. Stanton. very good introduction. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm very, very pleased to be here, and I feel great honor to be a speaker this evening. I met Dean Allison just almost a year ago in Japan, and Shimoda Conference. That time, I talked about our legal problem in this country. Then he said, why don't you come to my school to speak? That time, without deep thinking, I said, okay. Then I received a letter from him, and he gave a very, very difficult subject, theme of my talk. That is role of lawyers in handicapping entrepreneurs' effort in the United States. So this is a very difficult task to fight against lawyers in this country, and a dangerous task, I know. That's why I didn't prepare any script. I made just a note in Japanese. So, because I have to watch our audience all the time to be able to change my subject to avoid any legal problems. At first, I'd like to make very clear that my talk is my personal observation, not an opinion bearing a legal meaning. So I'd like to avoid any legal problem in the data. Actually, in 1960, we started our operation in this country because when we decided to go worldwide overseas market, we thought we should have our own operation. Because the important reason is we always create new product. Such a new product, nobody has a knowledge how to utilize, how to sell. So if we depend upon the third party, maybe we have a difficult to convince our trader. So that's why I decided not to use so-called trading company. We wanted to have our own operation. So I came here, I started small company with 3 Japanese, 3 American. Naturally, that time I didn't know anything about American management. But a few months later, I found that big difference from Japanese system to the American system. In Japan, we have so-called lifetime employment. So once we hired our personnel, we cannot fire, customarily or legally. But in this country, I found management can fire employee at any time. I was shocked. But same time, I thought this country is a paradise for the management, because we can change replace the people very easily. But then, few months later, I found this is not a paradise for the management, because I found even top management is fired very easily. So management is fired and employee is fired. So this is dangerous company to everybody. So seeing this fact, and also running the company, I found American people always seek for justification for what he is doing. Because if he made a mistake, he will be fired immediately. and he will lose a job. So justification is the most important factor to the employee and also to the management. How to get the justification? In Japan, we don't have such a fear. So even we made a mistake, nobody fired me, and our employee made a mistake, we cannot fire him. So we can do anything which we believe good for company. But in this country, sometimes man believe this is good for the company, he did it, and he made a loss. No excuse for him, he will be fired. So that's why to protect himself, he always seeking justification. To get a justification, easy way is to get a third party, his opinion. That's why consultant business is very popular in this country. I'm not criticizing consultant business, but if you ask a third party, consultant, opinion, and then you do business, then you can say, I got opinion from this consulting company, and I followed his opinion and his the way of doing, then probably economic situation changed. That's why we could make money. So he get a justification, and he will be relieved to be fired. So I found for the American businessman, most important thing always he thinks is how to avoid his responsibility. I'm talking of general view. I'm not talking, of course, there are many, many exceptions. But I felt that way. Therefore, not only justification from consultant, even more important thing is he need legal protection. That's very important because you have so many complicated legal problems and then laws and regulation. Even on the law, I found there is a big difference of perception between Japanese and American. In 1961, we issued our shares in Wall Street as a first Japanese company. Naturally, to issue our shares in this country, I was told we have to register our company at the SEC. That time, I have no idea of the SEC, so we got the American lawyer. Many lawyers came to Japan, and they started to check all our documents. We have many, many contracts with other companies. And they said we have to translate into English all our contract with other parties and to register the SEC. So we got our people to translate all our contract. We show that American lawyers. Then American lawyers, gee, I cannot understand this contract. That is this. In Japanese contract, last paragraph, last chapter is always this. If or when either party have a disagreement on this contract, both parties agree to sit down again with good faith to solve these problems. So American lawyer said, what does it mean? Once you have a disagreement, how you can sit down to talk? But I couldn't understand why American lawyer said that, because that is our custom. You know, if we have a disagreement, let's sit down, good faith, and then we can discuss why we have a disagreement and why we have the problems, how to solve this problem to make a mutual interest. But American lawyer said, this is the last paragraph of American contract. Always American contract, last paragraph said, if there is any disagreement between two parties, court, what court, New York court, or Washington court, or any court, or a third party, last paragraph always define third party as an arbitrator. So with American people think, without third party, you cannot solve this problem. This is a basic difference of perception in the business. In Japan, we trust each other because we are a homogeneous country, and almost all Japanese are almost like a relative or a family. So if we have any disagreement, we said, let's sit down again. But I found in this country it's impossible. If disagreement is disagreement. So then you have to go somewhere, somebody, to decide which is right. So I can understand American theory because I studied science. So law is like a science. So theoretically, American system is right. But practically, I don't know whether it is good or not. Our system is based upon the Oriental ethics and Oriental custom. So if we have some disagreement, mutually, both parties should try to find a solution. So in this country, breach of contract is very, very dangerous. In Japan, if somebody breach a contract, we said, you breach, let's change your attitude, and then we can do something better. But in this country, if somebody breach a contract, then we got one party get a legal liability. That's very dangerous. That's why businessmen need lawyer all the time. Before he make any contract, he has to ask lawyers what is the best contract. Now, what is the role of lawyers? Lawyers have to think about all possible risk and to avoid any legal liability. So lawyer says to the businessman, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, and we should put this chapter, so the contract is getting thicker and thicker. And it's very difficult to understand. And sometimes lawyer says, too many advice, so businessman gets shrink. He cannot do anything. So I got such experience. We got so many lawyers, and we are involved with so many lawyers, and they are giving so many different advice. So if we listen to lawyer too much, we cannot do any business. Just we can sit down. So that lawyer's role is very important for the businessman, but I think that is a danger for the business. Because even lawyer thinks all possible risk, but sometimes unthinkable things happen. One of my friends, American friend, he is rich, old rich man. He was told every year nearly a few thousand people slip in the bathtub and hit the head, he lost their life. So he tried to avoid that danger. So he's rich, so he made all bathtub with a rubber. And all the floor is rubber, and he put that rope to hang, and all the knobs of water and hot water with plastic, soft plastic. So he thought that is safe. But actually, he slipped down in his bedroom and he broke a leg. So he didn't fall down in the bathtub, but he fall down in the bedroom. So such an unthinkable thing happened. So that's a fact. Not only myself, I noticed even leading American businessmen started to worry about this legal situation, legal problem in this country. My close friend, Mr. John Opel of IBM, he wrote some article. The article says, "Our litigious society." He said, 10 years ago, every year, 10 years ago, 87,000 cases were filed in federal court. Now, that number has almost doubled. And according to his calculation, year of 2010, almost a million cases will be appealed. So if the million case appealed, how many lawyers you need? Probably you need more and more lawyers. Already in this country, I was told, 500,000 lawyers working. And then every year, more than 39,000 people passed bar examination. That's what I was told. In Japan, every year, only 300,000 people become lawyers. And the total number of our lawyers is 15,000. So you have almost 15 or 16 times lawyers per capita. On the other hand, number of graduate, the engineering course, in Japan, we have almost 2 times than you have. Population you have is almost double. That means we have almost 4 times ratio the engineers are graduating. Naturally, if you have so many lawyers, they have to find their business. So sometimes they create business. I'm sorry I said that because I know that many lawyers are sitting here. But I think that is a fact. Sometimes many nonsense lawsuits is generated by lawyers. Because in this country, anybody sue anybody. So that's why you are always you are in a dangerous situation to be sued by somebody. In Japan, if somebody sues some other people, and then if he lost, the plaintiff has to pay legal expense to the defendant. So that's why we cannot sue other people with nonsense matters. But in this country, I feel many nonsense lawsuits. And beside more than that, in this country, so-called contingency-based lawsuits generated. That contingency system applied even the industry or enterprise or companies. So sometimes lawyers and company has a joint venture to create big lawsuits. good country for lawyers. One time, I entertained all our lawyers for our company. So I made a speech that until I came to this country, I thought our business is the best business. But now I found lawyers much better business than I have. So if I can live twice, next life I like to be American lawyer. But I like to touch upon the more serious problem. Now, in the modern industry and this age, we need technological innovation, breakthrough. For such technological breakthrough, now we need big project, because science or technology have developed up to such an extent. In old days, one man can make big invention or innovation. But now, technology becomes so sophisticated, so one innovation need very large scientists and the engineers, all the people have to work together. And to undertake such a project, substantial big amount of money or expense is necessary for the company. So to undertake or to initiate such a big technological project without courage, without frontier spirit, we cannot start a business or the project. Dr. Stan mentioned the video technology. We started video recording project team 25 years ago. That time, only one company was making video recorder. That's Ampex. Ampex started to make a big TV station video recorder, naturally black and white. That machine was a big machine and many vacuum tube. So for one machine, they need air conditioning. And the whole big system they need. But that time, we are making tape recorder, and just we are starting transistorized television. So my colleague, Mr. Ibuka, started thinking, in the future, maybe we can combine two technologies. Tape recorder can record sound, but sometime in the future, we can make tape recorder on which we can record TV signal for home use. So we started project team 25 years ago. And then every year we spend a lot of money to reach today's Betamax. Without strong courage and without strong motivation, and also courage to take a risk, we cannot continue such a big technological development. But if such a thing going in this country, if he is a founder, owner, it's all right. But he is hired top management, he might lose a job very soon, because just he's spending money without making a profit. So that is a danger. But I believe and I think the man who is called entrepreneur is the man who set up a target and who carried project with his frontier spirit, with a strong confidence. That is real entrepreneur. No, for general Japanese, image of American people is through Western movie, because it's popular on the Japanese TV. So all general Japanese believe American have a strong frontier spirit and also strong humanism to help each other and to move ahead all the time with a strong courage. But in these days, after John Wayne died, I'm afraid American lost such a frontier spirit. Because in business, always they try to avoid a risk. And sometimes in a business, they don't trust even their colleague. That is true. If you trust your colleague today, maybe tomorrow he will be your competitor. People move around. So that's why you cannot trust colleagues. So you lost the mutual trust and the mutual confidence. So in the company, people don't trust each other, and the management don't trust employees. Employees don't trust management, and government doesn't trust business organization or industry. Industry don't trust government, so always they are controversial. Sometimes at home, husband doesn't trust wife, wife doesn't trust husband. Only person you can trust on is your lawyer. Because legally, your conversation and the correspondence between lawyers and client is protected legally as a secret. So only the conversation between client and lawyers cannot be disclosed. But all other things will be disclosed at the court. So how you can trust other people other than your lawyers? But in Japan, we customarily trust each other. That's why government and the industry always trust each other. Actually, we, as a business organization, if we make a profit, we give more than 50% of our profit to the government under the name of corporate tax. So that means without having any single shares, government take up more than 50% of our share stock, our profit. That means government and company are partner. They have a majority. You know, just like we have a joint venture with the government, because government take our profit. So from government viewpoint, as if it is a joint venture, naturally government won't have other party work hard to make a profit. So that's why how government and that business can be controversial, because that is the government profit, and also from the government viewpoint, government better to help industry because they get more income. So that's why government and industry, we believe that's natural to trust each other and work together. Therefore, everybody trusts each other, even in the company. So, and everybody looking for the long future. So therefore, any decision is made, top level and the lower level, from a long-range viewpoint. That's why I said, in the company, if somebody made a mistake or make some damage. But if he did it with a good faith, that he will not be accused. Just I said, don't make same mistake again, because that is a good lesson to him. So we are encouraging our people to do whatever he thinks best for the company. So he doesn't worry about any legal liability or any problem to be fired. So we can work together. But once we have come to in this country, naturally we got to be good American citizens. Even we are a Japanese-based company. Our Sony America is an American company. We like to be good American business citizens. So we will, and we did, observe American law and regulation. But funny thing happened. That's why I said sometimes you have a legal harassment. I like to tell exact true story what's happened with us. In 1968, one trade association committee filed complaint with the Treasury Department claiming Japanese TV makers were dumping their set in this country and causing injury to the domestic TV manufacturer. Sony was one of the companies included in the complaint, though there were no specific evidence exist. In the fall of 1969, after an investigation of the complaint, we were advised by the U.S. Customs Service that we had been cleared of any suspicion of dumping. No dumping margin have been found. But in 1971, the Treasury Department decided that all Japanese television manufacturers had been dumping. Again, Sony was included in the ruling solely by the reason of our nationality, not because of any evidence, because American Customs made a survey and no evidence, but we were included because we are a Japanese company. So we protested repeatedly, seeking exclusion from the ruling, but that's in vain. While we are unsuccessfully seeking exclusion from the government's dumping investigation, we were named in an antitrust lawsuit filed against the Japanese TV companies by one American TV manufacturer, because we are named by your government. So in 1975, after 4 long years of petitioning and delays caused by turnover in the government personnel and a misplaced document and the numerous errors in dumping calculation, it was finally agreed to exclude Sony from the dumping ruling. But this was not end. The Treasury Department insisted on looking still further at Sony TVs imported during the previous 3 years period. So still more documentation were necessary. In 1978, without prior notice, Treasury Department changed its method of calculation on dumping duties. So whole new mountain of documentation started in our company because they changed the system method of calculation. Later in 1978, Treasury again investigated Sony in both Japan and the United States. And it concluded that as far as Sony was concerned, the previous ruling changing the calculation method should be reversed. So all our work was in vain. But by December 1979, Treasury still had not completed its calculation to determine dumping duty liability, if any, with respect to Sony. Again, extensive errors were found because we checked and they made many errors, new computation, which delays final resolution. In 1980s, authority for administrating the anti-dumping law was shifted from Treasury to Commerce Department. So Commerce eventually reached settlement with 9 other Japanese manufacturers. But then, American committee, industrial committee, and one company obtained an injunction to prevent implementation of the settlement. So such a thing going on and on. In March 1980, Federal District Court in Philadelphia dismissed the 10-year-old antitrust case. It says Sony, the highest price seller in the US market, are illogically candidate for membership at low price conspiracy. So thus, we were clearly vindicated in the court. So it took a long time and a complicated legal. Of course, we like to admire and observe your law. But if such a legal procedure starts, it should be solved and examined much faster. I'm not talking for myself. I think I'm talking to yourself, all American people. I think such a legal procedure should be carried on much faster way and without mistake, without replacing the personnel. But this is a fact. So I am very much concerned about the role of lawyers in handicapping entrepreneurship. So I hope you will do something to avoid such a problems and troubles and let entrepreneurs take risk with a frontier spirit and make your country strong. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Morita has agreed to take questions if you have questions you would like to put to him. I'm not sure that he wants to talk any more about lawyers, but...
Any question?
Yes. What are the other things that handicap entrepreneurship in this country from your viewpoint? Because there's no doubt that bureaucracy has spread and kind of is draining the spirit of enterprise from a lot of businesses. How, like in your company, what will you do to make sure that after you, some bureaucrat doesn't get into your position and lose the
Yes. One problem on that point is disclosure of the company result, quarterly disclosure. Now I'm not criticizing SEC because I have to comply with the SEC regulation. I got to be very careful. But if I may state my personal opinion, SEC try to protect investors' interest. That's why SEC said, company must disclose your result every 3 months, more and more details. And then we naturally issued quarterly report. And also, as a sign in Wall Street, your investor, mainly big institutional investor, and such a big institutional investment group has somebody called investment manager. And he has to decide how to shift his investment. So he has to rely on somebody to avoid his risk. So there are a profession called a security analyst, to whom I addressed this luncheon time. But security analysts are expert to analyze company result. But depend upon the quarterly report, security analyst said, now, that quarterly report always compare the profit just 1 year ago. And unfortunately, my company, second quarter, our profit decreased. So I have to say decreased. But that is decreased only comparing the last year. So only yearly basis comparison. And then if amount of decrease too much, maybe security analysts recommend to sell this stock. So bunch of stock was sold. Then stock price come down. Then top management has a danger to be fired. So to avoid this situation, top management try to show good figure. So therefore, he doesn't want to anything to decrease his profit. When I visit some American company, I saw at the factory. I saw the very old machine still working. So I said, why you don't replace this machine to get much higher productivity and a much higher reliability? But he said, I know it. But if I replace this machine, I have to make a substantial amount of investment. Then I have to start write off, depreciate this machine. And then I will not stay this company too long. So why I should sacrifice my this year's profit for my successor? But from long-range viewpoint, that company should replace this machine. So that everybody looking for the company from short-range viewpoint and his personal viewpoint, that is not good for the company. I think, company should be taken care of with a long-range viewpoint. So I think that is one of the reasons you have some problems.
In Japan, you don't have many lawyers, but you have many strong and able bureaucrats who sometimes require many documents. If you were reforming America, you would reduce power of lawyers. In Japan, if you were reforming Japan, would you reduce power of bureaucrats?
That's why we have a now special committee, to simplify our bureaucracy. Mr. Doko, as you know, that he is a strong old businessman. He is 84, and he has nothing to fear. So he is carrying this committee with a strong power, and he's making a recommendation to the government to simplify. Actually, with this committee, already many things simplified. Of course, I know that is not enough to get much easier the bureaucratic documentation, but still, I think this committee is making good thing for us.
How does a Japanese entrepreneur get his company started in view of the lack of mobility of experienced people?
Of course, our case, we started our company with 20 people. Now we have 50,000. When we started 20 people, we don't know anything about the business. So that's why, we, customary in Japanese company, we hired fresh graduate from the school. But our case, we have to grown up. So we cannot wait fresh graduate students grown up in the company. So we decided to break a Japanese tradition. I ran the big advertisement in the newspaper that said there are many chances in your life. Now, why don't you look around in your company and think about, and why don't you try to challenge new field? So, in Japan, there are many good schools. Famous school, Tokyo University, many KO, many good schools. These graduates go to the big company first. And because they believe big company, famous company, old company is attractive. Then they get the exam and they pass and they join the company. And first few years it's all right. But 5-6 years passed, when he started to think about to get married, he looked around escalator. Japanese system is lifetime employment, just like an escalator. Then he found he is standing very low level of escalator. He found many capable people standing on the escalator, full of people in the escalator. Then, seeing our ad, he started thinking, now if I stand here, he doesn't know when he get up. So very courageous people decide to get our exam. So we got very aggressive people. Now these people are core of our company. So actually we broke a tradition and we gave a mobility among Japanese employees.
Are those people now ready to leave you to go to the next startup?
If, of course, some people left, very few number of people left. But if he wants to leave, that is not his fault. That's our fault. Our concept is this, like this. We ask our people, other people come in. And if he wants to leave, company or management didn't give his satisfaction. So we like to have people who has full of motivation. Then we have a dynamic company. And also, in the case of recession in this country, many times management lay off the workers. But when management decide to hire workers, increase number of employees, he wanted to make a profit. That's why he hired more people. But when recession comes, that recession is not caused by these employees. Recession caused by other factors. So then, management want to lay off these people. From our viewpoint, why only such an employee should be suffered with a recession? Management stayed and laying off the employees and decreasing his expense, and management keep a profit, and he get a good bonus, and the employee do the job. So that is, I think, from my personal viewpoint, irresponsibility of the management. So in Japan, once we hire the people, we have to take all the responsibility for his life. And if anybody wants to leave, that is his decision, and we have to think and reconsider how we did treat him. That's our philosophy.
In Japan, it's a hierarchy system is very important custom. And like your company has been over 20 years, then we probably have an old engineer and young engineer, have a lot of controversy between them. And I think have a lot of problems when we offer. In the United States, you can move around different companies, but Japanese people, they one company. Then how can you face with it?
Okay. I created some trick on that problems. Naturally, we are a Japanese company. If we run our business in Japan, we have to observe Japanese custom. So once people getting older, we have to increase his wages. And sometime at certain age, we have to give us some title. So we do this. But we should have a flexibility in somewhere. That is organization. Sometimes even we give a good title, but we don't give too much responsibility, too much authority. So even depend upon the division. Same title, this manager has a manager, and the other manager, he is young and he's older, but sometimes young manager has a big responsibility. And even in this country, I believe people don't work only for money. I know some people working only for money. But, we can live only one time. We cannot live twice. So to work or to live, we like to have some joy of work. So if we give good side responsibility to young generation, even he doesn't have any title. If we give a big job, he is well more motivated, and also he believes he has a good future. But in this country, title, a job, and the monetary incentive is all tied together. So that's why if somebody, young generation made a big job, management think you have to give a big money. But in Japan, customarily, we have to raise. So once we give high salary, one personnel, we cannot give a raise forever. So sometime his raise is stopped. So that time he will be discouraged. So we like to give the same kind of raise, naturally depend upon the wage, then the difference is becoming bigger, but anybody get some raise every year, depend upon the seniority. So with such a, I should not call trick, but such a system, I think, and I believe we can get our people motivated, well motivated.
Why would you say that the Japanese society is a more productive society?
It's very hard to express, but one factor is we have a homogeneous society. Fortunately, we have one race, one language, and all the country, So we are almost some kind of relatives. And then we have, Japanese people are grown up under the same circumstances and the same culture, and also almost same kind of education. So that's why we can understand what other people think. Sometimes among Japanese people, without talking, we can think of what he wants. So that's why without discussing, without talking, we have a mutual understanding. That is our advantage. So I'm not saying you should do this, but just I talk our advantage. That's a fact.
I'd like to ask a question about the relationships between government and business that you mentioned. You said that the Japanese perspective was that it was a joint venture because the government got more than half of the profit in terms of taxes. Well, our government also gets a substantial fraction of corporate profits in terms of taxes, but yet our perception and your perception of our system is that it's adversarial rather than cooperative. So what do you attribute the difference between the two? It can't be the tax itself.
Rather than answering to your question, I'd like to ask why you cannot get your government think your industry is your partner. Because you are giving the more than half to the government. Maybe fact is.
Right, that's my question.
So let me know.
Let me repeat again Mr. Little's question from upstairs at dinner. Would you tell us a little bit about how you came to build Sony?
Oh, if I started to talk about Sony, it's a long story. Short version. Actually, as I said, we started very, very small scale. But naturally, we got to, we was group of engineers. So we discussed from scientific way. So we found basic principle of free economic system. That is, we decide what we need. So for example, 25 years ago, already we decided we should make video recorder for home use. Just like Mr. Kennedy said, we should send a man to the moon before 1970. That's a big target. Our target is small, but always we set up target. If we set up a clear target, then we know what we should do, and we work together. That's then after we created new thing, we found to sell new product, we must educate customer. Unless we educate customer, nobody buy our product because they don't know how to utilize. So to educate customer is communication. So we have our own marketing force, first in Japan, next to this country. Now we have our own company all over the world. I regard our marketing force is communication channel. Whenever we create new product, we have to teach to the customer what is the merit of this product. So, and then naturally, as a Japanese company, we know we have to buy everything, material, energy, everything. We thought we should go to the worldwide market. So we decided to go worldwide. But to go to the worldwide market, we naturally need unique product. So we started to make a transistor, and then transistor radio, and transistor TV, and unique trinitron. So when we made a transistor radio, we decided to take transistor to United States and Europe. That time we found our basic problems, that company name. We started Japanese name, Tokyo Tsushin Kogyo Kabushiki Kaisha. And I found no American can pronounce our company name. So without such a difficult name, we cannot do business. So we decided to change the name, company name, and trademark. So Mr. Ibuka and myself sit down every day to find out name. So we set up the basic condition for new name. Firstly, international name, which can write English letters. And it's better to have a short name. Short name is easy to remember. And the same, it should be pronounced same sound all over the world. So we find Latin word, sound, because we are sound business. This sonus, the Latin word, plural of sonus is S-O-N-I, soni. But if we write as S-O-N-I, American pronounce sonai, Japanese pronounce soni. So then we found another English word, sunny boy, young, cute boys. So we thought that we are a group of sunny boys working a sound business. So we made a short, S-O-N-Y, we created. That's a Sony name. We started sell all over the world. That's a simple short story.
I believe you will all agree that this has been a very rewarding evening, and I'd like to thank you very much. And I know you've got to get a plane and get back to New York, and tomorrow go back to Tokyo, and then be back in 10 days. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.